We're also going to be talking about the apprenticeship programmes and how you can kickstart your career. In this first session, I am joined by three wonderful guests. If we can begin by having you introduce yourself and your role.
Yeah, I'm Harshmeet Kaur, and I'm a business transformation analyst at our tech strategy and transformation practice at Deloitte.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Beverly Addison. I'm within finance strategy in our consulting portfolio.
Hi, I'm Haji Abdulali and I'm a banking solutions analyst.
Now, we probably should say that you are all apprentices doing your degree, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is that how you all know each other?
Yes, we all started at the same time in September 2022, so we've met through that.
And why did you choose the apprenticeship route rather than going off traditionally to university?
So when I was in year 12, I was obviously starting the process of looking for what university to do, what course I want to do, and throughout that process I wasn't too excited about going to uni. So that's when I started doing research into alternative higher education pathways, and I came across apprenticeships, and it sounded like something that was a really good fit for me. So that's where I started my journey into looking into it, and I decided that that's the one I want to do.
And that made you feel excited?
Yes. Yeah, because I am someone who learns a lot better, sort of working on the job and like getting to practice my skills rather than do exams all the time and, all sort of depend on that one exam. So, that's why I knew that it would be something that I'd enjoy a lot more.
What about you, Beverly? Why did you choose this route?
Yeah, so I always knew I kind of didn't want to go to uni. I don't know where I heard about apprenticeships, but I think it was in year 11. I was kind of proactive in year 11 in terms of going to seminars for companies. So I had a gap here and I was like, I'm going to look into apprenticeships more. And I'm someone that learns again, like Harshmeet, on the job. And if I was going to go uni, I was like, I'm going to do English literature and kind of be at Yale or Harvard. I was aiming high. So I was like, a degree apprenticeship sounds best for me because I am kind of learning on the job and kind of there is that aspect of being debt free as well, which is always a benefit.
The fact you had a gap year is quite exciting. What did you do in that time?
Yeah, so I went back to Ghana, which is where I'm from, for 2 months, just to see my family and all. And then I kind of came back and I was like, I'm going to take it easy, but kind of threw myself into a workspace. I was working with a real estate marketing company for the whole year, actually, when I came back. So I feel like I kind of got that head start into a working environment. And I was the youngest one there, so it kind of was a bit new to me. But yeah, that's what I did during my gap year.
And what about you? When you started your apprenticeship, was that the first kind of job you'd ever had?
Yeah, so I actually didn't really have any job experience, which is quite a surprise. A lot of people ask me like, what experience do I put down on my CV? You don't actually have to put any down. So I only went in with, once or twice helping out at my aunt's takeaway.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. What kind of food?
Chinese.
Hey, there you go. Okay, so that must have given you some confidence and some skills that you could utilise.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think especially for myself, communication and leadership skills are really important in the workplace, and I feel like you get some of that through the experience.
Beverly, you mentioned debt. Now, a lot of people are weighing up the idea of apprenticeships versus university in the traditional sense because of how much it costs.
Yeah.
Was that the big thing for you that sold it to you?
I think it's one of the big factors, but I wouldn't say it's entirely everything. For me, having a kickstart in my career and then also kind of having a degree on the side kind of just was a no-brainer. But also getting paid for doing that kind of makes sense to me and not having that kind of student debt afterwards. So yeah, it was one important factor, but I wouldn't say it was entirely everything. Like the degree part and the experience that I was going to get was also an important factor for me.
So how does it work? Because I imagine doing a degree is hard enough as it is, but then you're also doing a job. So how do you manage that?
Our time is traditionally split between like 80% work, 20% uni. So, it typically works out to like 1 day a week we're supposed to study. For my college, we actually sort of bunch that time together and we go away for a week every few weeks. But I kind of just, it was a learning journey, to be honest. In the beginning, when the uni work piles on, but you've also got a hectic project, it's like not always easy to communicate that with your team or with your uni. But through just sort of doing a couple of modules, I realized that maybe after work, or when I have a bit of a slow period, or the weekends I have to like do my uni work. And it can be hard to motivate yourself sometimes, but then, you're doing it for yourself. And so that's like the biggest motivation for me. It's like, well, at the end of the day, it's going to benefit me.
How has Deloitte supported or continue to support you with your doing your degree?
So when I started, we on my first project, we get like a project mentor, and I was quite lucky that my first project mentor was a fellow apprentice who just completed his stuff. So just talking to people is really helpful, sort of hearing from their experience what you can take on from that. But at the same time, your teams understand that you're an apprentice and that you have your school commitments as well. So as long as you're communicating it with them and you're telling them, oh, by the way, I might need to take some time off for my uni stuff, or that in a few weeks I'll be going to uni, they'll work around that.
Do any of you have anything to add in terms of the balance of the uni work versus normal work?
Yeah, so mine's quite different. I don't go away for a week. I have Fridays as my study day. And yeah, I also had a previous apprentice that was my mentor when I first started out. So they kind of understood that I have to do my uni work. Even though I was on a hectic project, I always had to kind of use my Fridays to do my studies. There's also other support systems, like we had a buddy kind of be like, hey, I'm having a hard time balancing studying and kind of the project work, and they kind of talk you through allocate this time to your studying and focus on your project work the 4 days that you're meant to be working on your project.
That's really good, because otherwise, if you haven't got anyone to talk to who can relate, you could go crazy with it all, couldn't you? How do you stay grounded, and how do you ensure that you get it all done in a timely manner?
I think time management is really important, and the best way about going around that is just writing things down. One thing I've learned just through practice is one file, just every morning getting up, putting that to-do list down, keeping a track of your items, putting a deadline at the end, and make sure you're keeping yourself organised through it all. And that just comes with time, so it's nothing to stress about, but it will come.
Talking about to-do lists, what do you guys get up to outside of work? Are there any hobbies or activities that you like to do?
I like playing sports, actually. I play tennis. At the same time, I like watching cricket as well. And I also really enjoy live music, because I sort of grew up playing playing instruments. So I just love going to concerts and sometimes reading as well.
Has any of that helped you with your job? Probably indirectly.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess when I was growing up and I was doing grades for my music exams, at the same time doing my exams at school, times when that got hectic, it was helpful. But also I think now what it helps with is just separating my work life and my personal life, because it's very easy to get caught up in all that you're doing at work and sort of forgetting about your personal life. So having those events in place to go to in the evenings or the weekends sort of helps you step away and be I got to enjoy myself as well.
Do any of you do any activities or hobbies outside of work?
Yeah, so I've also recently got into playing tennis. I actually play with Harshmi on the weekends.
Ooh.
I also got into cooking recently. Also love music. I feel like me and Harshmi are basically the same person outside of work. But yeah, I listen to a lot of music, so either at a concert or a gig. And yeah, I read books as well, so.
Nice. Haji, you're a fan of social media, aren't you?
Yeah, so I run kind of a social media page to help aspiring apprentices and kind of give them advice and tips, help them out. I do live streams every now and again, and go on podcasts, do little videos, and kind of give tips and tricks on how you can be successful in that degree apprenticeship space.
Why do you do that?
I think when I was applying, there just wasn't that information out there, and just watching the drive in the aspiring apprentices now, people coming on my live stream saying to me, can I have tips for assessment centres, can I have tips for job application, job simulation? When I was that age, I wasn't thinking about going on TikTok, on Instagram, reaching out to people, asking questions. I was just happy to be there. But just knowing that there's this space to help people out is just really important. It's something I like doing.
So let's talk about the application process then. What did that look like for you? I'm sure that you've all had a similar process because you all started in the same cohort, didn't you?
So for myself, I had a quite longer process. I applied in November, and I went through all the stages, and then just before the last stage, I got told that my job role had been changed because we'd been full. So then mine changed, and I did my assessment centre in around about May. And it was quite a long process, but I think as you go through the stages, you'll get used to it, and as you apply to other companies as well, it helps you get used to it quite easily and quite quickly. And then after the assessment centre, I managed to land a role.
How should you demonstrate that you're a good fit for a role at Deloitte? What kind of things should you bring to that assessment centre to stand out?
I think bringing yourself is the most important thing, and a lot of people change who they are in an assessment center, and it's very easy to read through it. Like like when I speak to people, I can tell when they're changing themselves just to talk to me. But just being yourself and bringing yourself and the best version of yourself to the assessment center is one of the most important things you can do.
Beverly, or was your process different?
No, I mean, yeah, I sort of started applying at the same time as Haji, because I did research during my summer of year 12. And then so there were 4 rounds or 5 rounds. So there was like application process where you just sort of give your information. Then we had the, was it the job simulation? So that's where you're doing questions about, like ranking stuff, multiple choice. And then there was the video interview stage, so that, you're just having questions written to you and you're recording your answers to it, and then the assessment center. And I think the main thing that companies look for, because we're apprentices and we won't have the same amount of experience a grad would, is that you're passionate about the role and the company. And as long as you're showing that throughout the process, especially in the last 2 final rounds, I think that's what they're looking for the most, because they're the ones who are going to teach you how to do the job, and you're going to learn it at the uni as well. So as long as you're interested in it and you're actually going to do it, that I think that's one of the important things as well.
What did you like about Deloitte when you saw it online? I imagine that's where you applied.
Yes.
What was it about it that was like, oh yeah, that fits me?
I think it was, I was going through all the companies' websites to, just understand like their work-life balance, the work culture, their values, and I just sort of saw Deloitte's values come through in all of their social media pages, and I think that sort of made it seem like, they actually do care, and it is an important factor at the company. And I also saw it, actually, the one thing that really, really made me want to go to Deloitte was in the final assessment center, when I was doing my interviews with the senior leadership team, sort of talking to them and hearing about their experience, and them actually showing an interest in like apprenticeships, and because you want people who will invest their time in you, so that really came across to me, and that's what made me like, this company is where I want to be. It was my top choice.
Sometimes we forget that when we go for an interview, we're actually interviewing the company as well.
Exactly.
They've got to be the right fit. Beverly, take us back to your first day as an apprentice. How did that feel?
I think I was very nervous at first. Again, I was kind of an introverted person. Even though I had been in a workspace before, it was nowhere near the scale of Deloitte. So I was nervous going in terms of speaking to people, making those new connections. And I remember we went to AIP, which is a program that we do at the start of our apprenticeships. And I just remember meeting Harsh there and meeting a lot of people that kind of were really nice, and everyone that kind of was facilitating was very welcoming. And I remember I started really quite early in the morning. I got lost, so that only threw me off in the morning. But I remember just taking in a lot of information at first, and then also meeting a lot of nice people. So I would say my first day was good, even though I got kind of lost on my way.
That's okay. That's the problems on the first day, isn't it?
Yeah.
But now you won't get lost again.
No, I won't.
You've obviously got quite a good friendship, all 3 of you, but especially you two playing tennis and what have you. What kind of social things does Deloitte put on for apprenticeships or apprentices?
Yeah, so there's a lot of what we call socials after work. And then there's also socials during work time. They can be events or a bar or an activity, depending what area you're in or what kind of grade you are. They have kind of socials catered to you. So you can either have a project social as well, which is the one where you're working with your project team. And then there's Bright Start socials, where it's just, that's what we call ourselves at Deloitte. Apprentice socials. There's a bunch of socials you can go to. There's always one happening each week, so
there's kind of socialising just for fun, cheers, woohoo, this is fun.
Yeah.
And there's also a kind of a networking element.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to me more about that, Haji. Have you taken advantage of any of the networking availability?
Yeah, 100%. So there's lots of networks out there that focuses on apprentice solely, and that really kind of helps people like us who aren't very used to the corporate world, like step into that environment and talk to other people our age. It's great being at a bar, people are older us, but in the same time, we can go to these networking events or events which are like solely run by apprentices and young professionals that we can just go straight into. And it's just great to meet people like the same age that are like-minded, has the same motivation or the same ideas that we do. And it's a lot different to like your normal crowd in terms of socializing.
That's really good to hear, because some people, when they're weighing up university versus apprenticeships, are worried they're going to miss out on social life, aren't they? Like Freshers' Week or what have you. Does it take longer to do your apprenticeship degree than it does a normal degree?
No, it's the same time. So our program's 3 years. So yeah, at the same time that our peers would graduate, we'd be graduating as well, which was another like factor, you know, that sort of convinced me. It was like, well, it's the same time, there's no debt. It's kind of like, you know, it sounds pretty good to me. I think there's some aspect of it that does run into like our beginning of our 4th year, but we're still like, I think we've graduated, but there's, you know, the apprenticeship standard that we have to complete.
And are there opportunities for you to grow and progress once you've done your apprenticeship? Beverly?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a clear kind of career path that's set out. Once we graduate, we get promoted to the next sort of level that you would be at, which is also another benefit, because if we went to uni, we'd be starting on the level that we are now. But we kind of have that head start where we kind of graduate and then straight we got a promotion and then
security as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so there is that career path that's kind of set out, and we kind of know the time frames as, oh, you're going to get to this grade at this level or whatnot. So it's this clear path there.
Before we went live, you were discussing going to the office tomorrow. What does that look like?
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'd go in the morning, sort of before our work starts. So for me, some of my meetings start at 8:30, sometimes 9. So I usually try to get there for 8:30, and then I think the office is a really fun space as well, because while we have quite a lot of freedom of being remote or in person, I like to have a good balance to it, because if I do too much of one thing, I just start feeling really unproductive. So yeah, I go in about twice a week, or I try to, and yeah, like, you know, you sort of meet so many people there. You know, for example, Harji's going to be there tomorrow, and some of my other friends will be there, and then my team will be there as well. So I think that in-person element allows us to learn better as well with the team, because when you're remote, you know, you can't be on Teams meeting the whole day long, but when you're sort of sitting next to someone, and you know, they can just sort of give you tips offhand, and so it's really helpful.
And you can pick and choose when you go in?
Yes. Yeah, well, there are sometimes, like, if you have to go to client side, you know, you don't have choice then, but otherwise you can go whenever. And there's a lot of flexibility, you know. For example, if your team's going in, you don't have to go in if you can't make it in, or you've got something to do in the evening. I think especially post COVID, they've sort of changed their like ways of working, where it's really up to you.
That's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, we've spoken about the kind of work-life balance. What do your friends and family make of you doing an apprenticeship? Do they think, oh, you're always busy working?
I would say my mum's like, oh, you're home. She's like, oh, you're home. You don't have to go to work. I do think sometimes when you're on a project and it's really hectic, I do kind of seem really busy to my friends. I'll be like, I'll message you after work, you know. I'm gonna take my break time just to kind of soak in everything, just have that time for myself. So when it's really like off-peak moments, it can seem like I'm really busy and don't have a social life, but that's only in times where like the client needs you to kind of put in the work and then deliver. But sometimes it's pretty chill and I'm just at home and having my lunch break, and my mum's like, you're not gonna go to work. And I'm like, I'm working, I'm just having a break. So yeah.
Is there an opportunity to travel with this role, with any of your apprenticeships that you're doing? Can you go abroad for a certain amount of time or anything?
Yeah, so I've managed to go abroad with my company to Prague for a football tournament, which doesn't seem like it's work related, but it's with all like the firms, all of our Deloitte offices around the world. And you spend a few days there playing in a football tournament, representing like your team or country, and yeah. That's
really cool, because as we spoke about earlier with your sport, it can give you loads of really good skills for the workplace, and you can bond with people, can't you?
100%.
Yeah. Is there any other travel opportunities that maybe you two have been able to do?
I haven't been abroad yet. I do really want to. Travel was like something that I was really looking forward to. I think in terms of traveling for project work, it really depends on who your client is. So furthest I've been is Birmingham.
Pretty good.
So, yeah, honestly, it wasn't bad. But yeah, I mean, I've heard of like, very varying experiences. If that's something that's really important to you, you let your team know or your sort of people lead know, and then you sort of try and find roles that have the opportunity. So I know there's also some people who've travelled all the way to the Middle East for some roles. So it really just depends on what you want.
Sometimes it's important to voice your interest and then people know, oh yeah, you're someone to go to.
Yeah.
Beverly, what advice would you give to someone watching this right now who's thinking about doing an apprenticeship?
Definitely ask questions. Especially when you first go in, there's going to be a lot of corporate jargon thrown at you, a lot of like words that I'm like, what does that mean kind of thing. So you have to ask questions when you don't understand something, and you have to be proactive and like reaching out to people. When you want things, like you were saying, it's important to be like, hey, this is where my interest lies. So they keep you in mind when that opportunity comes up, and they can be like, hey, there's this project that you can kind of do A, B, C on, and I heard that you're interested in that. And they will like put you in contact with the right people. So definitely asking questions. Also be open-minded. Sometimes you might be going into something that seems a bit like, oh, I don't know what this is. And that's kind of the whole consultant field, to be fair. It's like, what are we doing here at first? So yeah, be proactive, ask questions, and definitely also be nice to people, because you don't know who's who when you're walking around the office. So be nice to everyone, I would say.
That's really key bit of advice. Anything else to add from you two?
I'd say be patient and like sort of trust yourself, because sort of even at the point I'm at now, you think that by now I'd know everything, or that's what you expect, but every project you start, you're kind of back at zero, because it's completely different stuff that you're doing, and so it's okay to like at every project ask loads of questions, and it's okay if you're re-asking stuff and you don't know things, because you're not expected to know everything, and unless you tell them, they're going to assume that you do. So it can feel very daunting. I mean, even now when I start a new project, I'm like, oh, I get a bit nervous, but so as long as the team knows that, then they'll, for example, my current project is very technical, and a lot more technical than I expected. But so my client interviews, I might not know what's going on, but then I'll be getting links sent to like sort of look stuff up and sort of familiarize myself with it. So just be patient with yourself.
And it's good to feel nervous, because that means you're stepping outside your comfort zone. That's where you grow, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else to add from you?
Confidence. Confidence is one of the most keyest things you can have. You need to speak up as a person. You might be the least senior person in the room, but if you can see a mistake no one else can see, you got to speak up. You got to be confident. You are also another fresh pair of eyes. And if you're walking around the office, make sure you're not worried or anything. If you are, that's okay. Go speak to someone about it. But having that confidence around it, having that confidence about you, really helps you strive in like your personal development, especially in the workplace.
How do you develop that confidence though, if you are a really shy introvert person?
So during lockdown, I was a very shy and introvert person. I didn't speak to anyone or no one. It comes with time, and I think throwing yourself into places which isn't your comfort zone really helps. And like having that support network around you, making sure, for example, for me, that's my mum and my dad. That's like my family. Like having that always around you is really important. So if you keep that bubble around you and keep like being confident and keep walking around, keep doing the things that put you outside your comfort zone, slowly and surely confidence will come.
I love that piece of advice. You can take this podcast, can't you? And finally, what's been the most surprising thing about doing your apprenticeship with Deloitte? Haji?
One of the most surprising things was the opportunities that come with it. Obviously the stuff I do outside of work, but especially even within work. Like, for example, me talking to my uni friends about me travelling to Prague for a football tournament. They were like, aren't you supposed to be working? Like, the opportunities that you can get from doing a degree apprenticeship is crazy. Like the network, the resources that are out there that you can tap into for free is amazing. And I think just taking advantage of that and helping yourself self-develop and grow is very important.
Beverly, anything to add?
I would say the people. I mean, starting out, I kind of had this whole imposter syndrome, like, oh, I don't belong here, stuff like that. But I was surprisingly like taken aback when I saw how welcoming everyone is, and kind of there's no hierarchy, like no one's going to be like, oh, my partner, don't speak to me kind of thing. Everyone is super nice, especially the partners. You would think they're the most busiest in the world, but they will still talk to you. And I've made like the best of friends, like being here. So I would say I'm surprised by the people, but in like a very good way. And yeah, it's good to kind of feel at home. Yeah.
Fantastic. And last but not least, we've got to be quick. We've got another
Okay.
session coming up.
Mine's the exact same, to be honest. I was very surprised at the friends that I've made, because, you know, you do worry that by not going to uni, you're not going to meet those friends for life that you hear your parents talking about. People have sort of gone to uni before you. But I was very surprised at, like, you know, that I've found like-minded people, and some of my best friends now are people that work with me. So that was the most surprising aspect for me.
Well, thank you to all three of you for sharing your stories. I feel really inspired, so fingers crossed everyone watching does too. Make sure you stick around, because our next session will be in 5 minutes. I'll be having a virtual conversation with Patrick all about sustainability and Deloitte. See you in 5.
You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family, their community, our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything, if not to make an impact that actually matters? No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family, their community, our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything, if not to make an impact that actually matters? No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family, their community, our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything, if not to make an impact that actually matters? No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster. You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family.
Hello and welcome back to this podcast brought to you by Not Going to Uni and powered by KTV. Today we're discussing all things working at Deloitte, including apprenticeships and so much more. In this session, we'll be talking about sustainability and Deloitte, and to do that, I'm joined virtually by Patrick. So Patrick, hello, thank you so much for joining us. If we can begin by hearing a little bit about you and your role.
Great to be here as well. So my name's Patrick. I'm a ESG reporting consultant at Deloitte. So I work in our internal sustainability team, measuring our environmental metrics.
Wow, that sounds like quite the mouthful that you do there. So has sustainability and the environment always been important to you as an individual?
I think increasingly so. I think it's quite hard for anyone to ignore the effects of the climate change on the world that we live in. So I've always had an interest in what's going on around me, and that was kind of reflected throughout my time and when I was choosing what to do. So sustainability, when I started at Deloitte, was something that I was really passionate about getting into.
So talk to me about your journey to date then, when you maybe left school or what have you. What did it look like and how did you end up in the role that you're in now?
So I left school 8 years ago now, and I actually went to university. So I know this is National Apprenticeship Week, but I went to university through clearing, and I went to Queen's in Belfast, and I studied economics. So I think that's partly where my passion for sustainability and natural resources comes from. And throughout my time at university, I did a fair bit of environmental economics and understanding kind of how we manage our natural resources. So I think that's a bit where I got my passion for sustainability. And then after I joined Deloitte, I joined in the consulting grad scheme, looking at kind of operations transformation. So all about strategy and pieces like that. Worked on one or two clients, but also on the side of that was looking at what I could do internally to get involved in some sustainability pieces. So I worked on, within my industry, kind of trying to develop a sustainability offering on the side of my project work. And then ultimately, last November 2022, I applied for a secondment to the World Climate Team, which I'm in now, and have been working in the World Climate Team since.
So for those who might not know, what is a secondment?
So my secondment is basically where you move from the department or team that you're working to, and you're kind of lent to another team for a certain period of time. Just to give you a bit of a broader bit of experience on different areas, or something that you maybe wouldn't have gotten exposure to prior in the other area that you were working in. In my case, definitely.
And obviously you mentioned that after graduation, you kind of realised that you had this flair for sustainability more than you used to have, because that kind of developed over time at university. So when you were looking for businesses to go and work for, how important was looking at all of their kind of sustainability policies?
I think whilst potentially looking at my skills as well as an important thing, is I was able to kind of acknowledge what I was good at and see where I think I would have been able to make that difference. Not necessarily in the kind of more on the ground stuff, but using my skills and where I could use my interests from university and that passion for sustainability, and where I could combine the two. And I think increasingly, when I was doing my interviewing, I wanted to ask, okay, so what are you doing for sustainability? Where do you see your impact or the firm's impact, and how that could differ from a sustainability perspective? So I guess coming back to your question, asking kind of what steps the firm were taking in my interview was a big part, and then looking at what they were advertising to make sure that they were passionate about it, or I was able to match my skills to somewhere that was passionate about making change.
Yeah, passion is a really important thing, because obviously we're talking about the environment and sustainability, but no matter what your passions are as an individual, if you can find a company that aligns with that, then you're away, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I think if you're able to find something that matches your purpose or your passion, then that's really important in your role, because it will help you enjoy it so much more, and be able to put more effort, or more willing to
Yeah, exactly, because you're enjoying it and you feel like you're doing it for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about the World Climate Team.
Yeah, so the World Climate Team, which I sit on, is our internal sustainability team, and we are responsible for implementing our strategy to reach net zero. So we look at how we can operationally reduce our emissions, how we can engage everyone in the business, all of the employees, and empower them to make more sustainable choices. And then also look at kind of our wider influence and the role that we have and the role that we can play in society to help accelerate decarbonisation or moving towards net zero. And we are so I sit in like a Europe central team, and then each of the different countries that we operate in also have a World Climate Team as well that's responsible for it within their own country. So I get good exposure to, in my role on the World Climate Team, we have good exposure across Europe and able to coordinate efforts and really make a difference across a wider scale.
Yeah, on a global scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like, we sit within Europe, but as part of the global scale as well. So it's great to feel kind of connected across.
We discussed that key kind of question that you asked during the interview stage where you said, okay, Deloitte, what have you been doing to make a difference? So what were some of the answers they gave you and what have they continued to do to innovate and transform?
Yeah, so I think it's probably an interesting one where my interview wasn't necessarily with the sustainability professionals in the firm. So it would have been kind of quite client focused when I asked that question. So it would have been more like, we're seeing upcoming changes that the client's going to need, and we're obviously going to have to upskill a lot of people and make sure that we are attracting the talent that want to be involved in this kind of work. And then if I look at like my secondment interviews, that was a lot more specific about, okay, what operations are we going to be doing? How is that going to change over the next few years? My role is quite specific in the reporting function, and that's obviously that's increasingly subject to more and more regulation. So a lot of the changes that we're going to have to be made when I join the team are all around how do we prepare for that. It's probably one of the wider scale transformations that the company's going to have to have done, getting ready for all this upcoming reporting regulation. So I guess from my perspective, in two very different interviews, and that probably highlights the different ways that we have to look at sustainability as a firm. Both how do we internally review what our sustainability measures and efforts are, but then also how can we help influence others? And ultimately sustainability is going to be something that we have to build on for clients, and they're going to come to us asking for that as well. So how do we build the expertise for that side of the equation too?
From the sounds of it, a lot of what you're doing in this secondment is about kind of empowering and educating people to make different choices. How does it make you feel to have a direct impact on making Deloitte more sustainable?
I think I absolutely love my role. It gives me real exposure and makes me feel like I'm doing something good. It connects me to that purpose and that passion that we were talking about earlier. For Deloitte, we ultimately are a people business. We sell people as our product, and what people do is what we have to do, and talent keeps that engine running. So if we're able to empower those people that we're with sustainable choices, and also see that we're kind of differentiating from other companies and taking that sustainable action, that is really important, I think, especially for increasingly so for like Gen Z talent coming through, and where I think like 42% have said they will change or have changed their job or industry due to climate concerns. So being in a role where we can spread that imaging, spread that learning, and spread how we're doing that is really important. and something that I've really enjoyed. And people are becoming more aware of it. And when even in the last 13 months that I've joined the team, you've seen awareness increase, whether that be through some of the operational measures that we're taking or just people wanting to upskill on different areas as well.
That's brilliant. So we're not only talking about obviously your role where you're working with the sustainable conversation as such, but also the fact that businesses are having to change because the workforce is demanding it.
Absolutely. And I think that workforce demanding it is one of the biggest things that we will have to deal with from a recruitment perspective. And I'm sure in the next session you may hear a little bit more about that. But being able to, it's going to be a huge talent pool if we're able to demonstrate the steps we're taking, and obviously demonstrate it in a way that we can back it up with proof, because they're not kind of to avoid greenwashing or things like that as well. So super important.
So as someone who is passionate, Patrick, about being more sustainable, what little things do you do in your daily life that others could learn from and action in their own daily lives to be more sustainable?
Yeah, so I think it's all about making the little changes that you can control. I'm quite fortunate. I live a 10-minute walk from the office. I eat mostly veggie food, and it's all about making contemplating what you could do differently. For example, I'm going away in May, and I'm going to go to 2 places, and instead of flying between the 2, I'm going to get the train between the 2, and it's going to take me 8 hours instead of 40 minutes. But it's all about adapting to different choices based on your circumstances and where you can make changes. For some people it may be less feasible. I'm quite fortunate in that I don't have a car, I don't have I'm only relying on myself, so I can choose what to eat and things like that. So we've recently introduced, I'm based in Dublin, and in the Dublin offices now you can't take takeaway cups. So that's one of the things that we're empowering people to do, is just small behavioural changes like that. If you're getting a coffee in the office, they won't serve you in a keep cup anymore. Won't serve it in a takeaway cup. You have to have it in a keep cup. And taking that around with me. So yeah, just little changes like that, I would say.
That's nice that the company are actually making those changes, because that's quite a strong change. And I'm sure that maybe some people might have pushed back on that, but actually that is going to change their behaviours moving forward in a better way.
Absolutely, and that's a lot of what our team does as well, is how can we make these little operational changes that don't affect people too much and able to nudge people towards decisions. So if I think of other examples of what we've done in the UK, the car scheme now only allows for you to get an electric vehicle in the fleet. So if people are taking a company car, they can't get a combustion vehicle in the fleet options anymore. So naturally, people are more inclined, 100% inclined to get an electric vehicle, and kind of making steps like that which help empower people's choices are really important, and kind of show that we're making those changes. And I think another thing that we've introduced across the Europe-wide perspective is an app that takes sustainability into the home. So all of the Deloitte employees are able to sign into this app, and then it shows you kind of some of those little steps that you could be taking, and it works out a little carbon calculation. It shows you kind of like what your biggest impact areas are, and how you could take little steps. So I think next week we have like a no waste challenge. So it will be saying like, okay, try and go to the shop and buy individual carrots instead of a packet full of a kilo of carrots, and not if you only need 2 for a recipe or something like that. So really empowering people to make those small changes, that if everyone does, starts to make an impact.
Yeah, because for some people, I'm sure they have all the right intentions. They want to do their bit, but they don't know where to start.
Exactly. And even just seeing some of the different areas that you can impact, and that's really good and really important, I think, for some people.
So this evening we're talking about working for or at Deloitte. What does a day in your life look like in this seconded role?
A day in my life is probably quite unique from a working setting perspective. I'm the only member of the Central European team in Ireland, so I will either tend to work from home 1 or 2 days a week and then go into the office 3 days a week just to have a bit more social connection, I would say. So I would probably spend maybe two and a bit hours on calls a day, talking about various things, whether that's kind of team catch-ups, talking about work or projects that we're going. We may have a working session maybe once a month where we'll have like an extended block of time and work on different pieces. And then because we are kind of a remote team, we tend to have a lot of catch-ups. And when I say catch-ups, just like social catch-ups, so it might be 15 minutes regularly, once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, just so you do get that kind of water cooler chat that you maybe
human
miss out
interaction.
on being a bit. Exactly. And I think that's really important. We have that set up and established within the team. The people are comfortable to do that, and when you go on those, you do get that human interaction. And then I suppose outside of calls, I would do quite a lot of work for like in the summer, in the reporting periods, maybe on a lot of work on Excel, and that would be pulling together, cleaning, collating data from each of the different countries, and then rolling all that up into our environmental metrics for Deloitte across Europe. So I would say a good bit of individual work, quite autonomous in nature. So have a lot of control over kind of what I do and when to do it. So
It's nice to be trusted
I
like
don't know
that,
if
isn't
I've answered the
it?
question there.
Yeah.
So nice to have control, I'd say, of kind of when and know what you're doing, but also have that connection as well.
And you mentioned about the kind of water cooler chats, the little catch-ups. Actually, that's where some really good ideas can happen in those casual conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting other people's perspectives on different areas can be really important. I think we benefit from that within my team, of having different views from all over Europe as well, and getting that exposure to different working styles, different ideas, different products that are coming out of different areas is really, really good, and does give you that kind of a little bit of innovation, especially in considering the area of work that we are in is constantly changing. There's things going on all the time, new innovation. So yes, it's exciting. I enjoy. Every day is different, even though a lot of it can seem quite Excel focused or time. It's important to remind yourself of like the bigger picture and what it is contributing to.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, because I have no idea, what does Clause Zero mean?
Yes, so Clause Zero is an initiative that we have introduced in Deloitte this year. So we're putting kind of sustainable delivery at the heart of every engagement that we're doing, and doing that through a contract clause. So we are and that formalizes how we deliver work sustainably in like client contracts and engagement letters. So that would be like prioritizing digital first delivery
Rather than paper.
Rather
than paper and envelopes being sent around.
Well, not necessarily paper and envelopes, but also considering like our business travel. So business travel is one of our biggest sources of emissions, second largest source of emissions for us historically. So considering, do we need to travel to client site 4 days a week? And if we're dealing with international clients, do we need to have people flying over to the Middle East or to New York or etc. So prioritizing that digital first delivery, but not at the cost of quality of delivery as well, and making sure that when you are planning to travel, it's really for those moments that matter. And we've done that with Clause Zero by putting it at the start of every engagement, every contract, so that we are, showing that we're changing how we do business and kind of accelerating progress towards net zero for us, but also for our clients as well. Through that, just a different view of how we work together. And so that is Clause Zero.
Am I right in thinking then that it's not just important to the future workforce or for people like you in terms of Deloitte being sustainable, but it's also important for the clients?
Absolutely. So I think if we think of the three kind of biggest areas for us, we've got talent, which we've touched on, and next is that client piece. So we have to help clients with their challenges and also be credible in delivering how we are changing towards net zero as well. So if we can help clients with their work to achieve net zero, but also to lower their emissions. So for example, Scope 3 emissions, which is indirect emissions, our travel to clients will inevitably be a part of their Scope 3 emissions. So if we're able to work with them to change how our travel behaviors to when helping them on projects, then ultimately we're helping them as well along their net zero. And I think, as I touched on earlier, the third one is more like influence. So whilst we don't have a physical product, or a tangible product, which for most people is the clearest way that you can reduce emissions, whereas for us, we have to consider how we go beyond that and how we work with our clients and even our suppliers on the flip side of that to help reduce them and then thereby reduce our own emissions as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's happy days for everyone if we all work together, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So tell me now, what is Enter Net Zero and how can people have a go at doing that?
So Enter Net Zero is an immersive experience that we've developed at Deloitte, and it's aimed at anyone who's interested in kind of how sustainable choices could be made in the future. And it's a platform, a virtual immersive platform that you go through, and there's different things that pop up, and it will say, this is X company, this is what they've done, they've been involved in carbon sequestration, and then everyone has a little ESG rating as well. And at the end of it, what you have to do is apply kind of investment decisions based on those, and then so it's a way of kind of informing people about some of the potential technologies and some of the different changes that could happen in the future. And it's aimed at kind of school leavers, university students, college students, and Deloitte have kind of recruitment events and these Internet Zero events virtually. There are a couple coming up and they will be on the Deloitte Careers website. And what will happen is you go on each and you'll be put into a group of 5 or 6 different people that have all opted to join as well. And there'll be a Deloitte facilitator within the group. And what you'll do is you work through the immersive experience. They'll have little radio clippings and little news briefings that come up as well. And you'll work together to decide how you want to invest your £1 million fund into these different businesses. And it's just a way of bringing what the future of net zero world could look like.
That sounds like a really good initiative because it's not only educational and interesting, it sounds fun.
Absolutely. I've hosted it 2 or 3 times now, and it's really interesting hearing the different perspectives that you get from people of different backgrounds. I think I had like a law and business student on the last one with a school leaver, So it was interesting hearing how their opinions on the different matters was different, and it is just fun. Like you go through and it's kind of a bit of a novelty, a bit cheesy at times, but it's just kind of fun to work through and ultimately come to something at the end, and just get a different perspective on things.
Yeah, do something a little bit different. Well, Patrick,
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. Is there any kind of last words of advice that you'd like to give anyone watching this regarding sustainability?
That's a tough question.
On the spot there, sorry.
Any words of advice? I think if you can look at what you do, and this is more generally career advice, if you could, maybe not necessarily sustainability, I think I found that this is what I'm passionate about and what I'm really interested in, but if you're able to find something that you're interested in, it makes the whole work thing a little bit easier. And it might not necessarily come straight away. You may have to flick around a little bit to see what it is what that passion is for you, but you will eventually find it. So, yeah, not sustainability related, sorry, but
No, that was a really key bit of advice. Patrick, thank you so much for all of that.
no worries.
And thank you to you for watching this session. Make sure you stay tuned because in the next 5 minutes, we're going to be joined by Justin Fay, who is going to be telling you how you can apply for an apprenticeship at Deloitte.
No matter who you are, where you are, you never know how far one idea will go. Deloitte is there, and who it will impact. And even there, like her, we are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve their community. To know our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything, if not to make an impact that actually matters? No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family, their community, our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything, if not to make an impact that actually matters? No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green, creating impact where it matters most. You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family, their community, our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything, if not to make an impact that actually matters. No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green. Creating impact where it matters most.
Hello and welcome back to this podcast all about Deloitte and career opportunities there. In this session, we're going to be speaking to Justin Fay, who is here, all about how you can apply. So, Justin, first and foremost, if someone's watching this, it's probably because they're thinking about going for a position at Deloitte. Why would that be a good move, in your opinion?
Yeah, for sure. I think Deloitte is such a multifaceted business. So regardless of where someone's interest lies for their future career, we do so much for our clients. There's likely a career pathway that could suit individuals. You'd be joining as part of a large cohort of apprentices each year. And there's a real structure behind the training and development joiners get when they come into the firm. So we appreciate that transition from school and college into a big corporate setting can be quite daunting, but there's lots of wraparound support there to help people with that assimilation.
Can you give us some examples of that support? I mean, earlier on we heard about the mentoring that happens.
Yes, yeah, of course. So everyone coming into the firm gets a people leader. And that individual might be someone that you're not working with too much day to day, but they're ready to support you with your development, your goal setting, to keep you on track with any of the professional qualification exams that you might be doing. Alongside that, in every piece of work you do, you're part of a bigger team, and there'll always be more senior people on that team that can support you with that. And additionally, the training that you get when you come into firm is really extensive. So it's not a case you turn up on day one and you're straight into role. There is a lot of induction that happens with the cohort of apprentices that you're joining with. And that lasts several weeks to really assimilate you into the firm and get you up to speed. But actually that training's ongoing as well. So there's formal and informal opportunities. There's courses that you can sign up to. There's on-the-job learning that you get. So there's a lot of support in place to help with joiners.
Sounds very thorough.
Very thorough indeed.
I like it.
Yes, yeah.
So Deloitte obviously really kind of value offering apprenticeships. Why is that?
Yeah, of course. And I think talent comes in many different forms. And yes, the firm does recruit a large number of graduates each year, but we really see the value of diversifying the ways into the organisation. And we recognise that university just isn't for everyone anymore. And we want to capture great minds and great talent that might be looking at alternative routes. So for us, the apprenticeship programmes that we offer really help to facilitate that.
But it's not just apprenticeship programs, is it? Because you also have work experience opportunities and the Bright Start program.
That's correct, yeah. So we've got a couple of different apprenticeship programs. We've got an entry-level apprenticeship, which is for those that have finished GCSE onwards. We also have an apprenticeship program for those that have completed A-level or equivalent study. Both are structured programs and both allow you to really immerse yourself in Deloitte, have a real role from day one, but have all that training that we've talked about wrapped around that. But yes, importantly, we've got work experience programs as well, and they're really accessible from year 10 onwards. So for someone who has a potential interest in doing something business related moving forwards, there's that opportunity to have a couple of days with us, build your understanding of what a company like Deloitte does, and what types of products and services we offer to our clients. And importantly, it's a great thing to be able to add to your CV, particularly if you go on to start to apply for further work experience opportunities or maybe one of our apprenticeships or other apprenticeships that lots of organisations offer.
So in this session, we're talking all about the application process.
Yes.
So what does that look like? And is that different depending on which kind of scheme we just discussed you're doing?
Yes, yeah. The application process does differ a little bit depending on the role that you're applying to. And generally, if you're going for one of our permanent apprenticeship programs, the expectation up front in that recruitment process will be more. For our work experience programs, we try and keep it as simple as possible. We want you to apply. We want to get to know a bit about you as part of that process, but nothing too onerous at that stage. If you are applying to one of our entry-level apprenticeships or higher apprenticeship programs, the Bright Start scheme, then yes, there's a formal application. There is some online assessment that applicants complete. And then depending on the program, there'll be either an interview or maybe a fuller assessment centre that you would do with us.
How does the online assessment centre work?
Of course, yeah. So the online assessment centre is really an opportunity for us to see how you work with others. A lot of the work that we do at Deloitte is very teams focused, and it's rare that you're delivering in solo. You often work as part of a broader team to deliver outcomes. So we want to see that in action and see how you work with peers to get to an end output. The other component of that is an interview. That's more of a competency-focused interview. So we're really looking to understand your motivation for wanting to pursue a potential opportunity at Deloitte. Really get a sense of why you've applied to the specific program that you have. We've got lots of different opportunities. And we want to hear from you as to why you've chosen the one that you have.
Yeah, you want it to be like very, very well known. They're passionate about that particular role rather than, I've applied for everything.
Absolutely. Nailed it, basically.
Yeah,
and that's what we're
go.
looking to get from that interview. And also some scenario-based questions as well. Though we're very conscious that a kind of post A-level or post GCSE stage, the experiences that you might have had the opportunity to build up will be maybe lesser than a graduate applying to us, and that's absolutely fine. What we'd say is really think broadly about the experiences that you do have. So you may not have work experience, but you might have experiences that you've built up through school or college, maybe sports, maybe other extracurricular activity, charity work, volunteering. Really think broadly about the examples and use those to your advantage when addressing those questions.
In the first session, we heard from someone who used to help his auntie out in her family restaurant, in the Chinese restaurant.
Perfect.
And that was an example
Yes.
that maybe you wouldn't even think to mention, but that's key, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people would discredit the breadth of experiences that they do have.
Yeah.
And it is really important before going into any interview, particularly at Deloitte, to think broadly about what you have done. Don't focus on what you've not done, but focus on the skills and attributes that you have built up. And I said, yes, it might not be formal work experience, but thinking really broadly like that is a perfect example to back up where you've been able to do something successfully in the past. And that gives us confidence that you've got that skill that you can bring to the firm.
So we've discussed the kind of experiences and the answers to those questions and examples, but what kind of characteristics stand out in those situations? Do you need to show that you can handle a conversation well? Do you need to have an air of confidence? Is there any kind of qualities and attributes that you would be looking for?
I think what's really important to note is that we're not looking for a set type of person. We want to get to know our applicants individually, and we recognise that each individual applicant will have unique skills and capabilities. So I'd encourage people not to come into any selection process thinking they have to be a certain way. We want to get to know you as an individual. That said, there are some prerequisites which might support you. So as said, things like working in teams and working with diverse groups of people are people from all different backgrounds and experiences. By nature of Deloitte being an international firm, sometimes the work you deliver might be part of broader global teams as well. So that ability to work with others and get on with others and find commonality is really important. We look for people that are inquisitive, they ask questions, individuals that can learn and then apply those learnings again in the future. But above and beyond that, we want to get to know the individual through the process and get to find out their unique skills and capabilities.
I'm going to pick up on the fact that you said inquisitive kind of nature,
Yes, yeah.
because often in an interview setting, the interviewer will say, have you got any questions for us? Usually right at the end. And it's always kind of been hammered into people, you should always have a question.
Yes.
You shouldn't say, no, I haven't got anything. So what question should they ask?
It's a good question that you ask. In my view, that's your opportunity to find out something that you can't for yourself. So when you're applying, there is so much information on various career sites, on our careers website, the job description. There's lots of detail there about the role itself. So my advice would be to ask something that you can't find out through what's readily available to you. And the interview is a two-way process. So we want people to come out the other side of an interview having confidence that if they were to receive an offer, it's the right offer for them. So I'd encourage people to think about the questions that help clarify that. So it might be something linked to the role or the team, which they couldn't find out for themselves. It could be something to do with the firm itself, maybe a bit more about the culture of the firm, maybe some specific questions about the learning opportunities that exist. Maybe some really practical questions about how does the team work? How many days am I based in the office? How many days will I maybe work in a slightly more flexible way? But the key thing is ask things that you couldn't find out through what's already available to you.
And maybe have a list of 2 or 3 in case the answer's already given to you and then you're, oh, my question's already been answered.
And I would say there's nothing wrong with coming to the end of the interview and having those questions and referring to those questions, because it's quite a daunting situation to be in. We can forget things when we're in that situation. So I'd absolutely encourage you to take a moment, say, oh, I've got some questions written down. Can I look at those and make sure that you do walk away with everything answered that you want to get from it.
And if nothing else, that will show initiative, the fact that you've made the effort to write down your questions.
Absolutely.
So how competitive are the apprenticeships at Deloitte? Is there a lot of people that apply?
It differs depending on the role that you apply to. So we do get a relatively high number of applications for all of our programs each year. And it does depend on your specific area of interest and location. That said, if you are thinking of going for it, unless you apply for it, you'll never be successful with that opportunity. And actually, through the right preparation and having the right passion and motivation for wanting to apply in the first place, I think stands people in really good stead.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the money side of things, because a lot of people like apprenticeships because they can earn while they learn.
Yes.
So does it depend on the certain role that you're doing? Is that determine how much you're going to be paid, or how does it work?
Yeah, so each of our entry routes, there'll be different salaries that are offered, say, for our entry-level apprenticeship versus our Bright Start programs. And it also depends on the location that you're joining as well, and factoring in slightly higher salaries in London, for example, versus some of our regional offices. That said, the pay is competitive, and there's broader benefits as well. So, for example, you won't be accruing any student debt through taking the apprenticeship route, which is very significant come the end of what a typical 3 to 4 year course, with fees nearly reaching £10,000 each year. So there's none of those costs that are accrued. You receive a salary from day one. There's bonus potential. And also there's a number of other benefits that you get working in a firm like Deloitte, things like healthcare, for example, reduced gym membership, and lots of other discounts and vouchers that you can use for everyday purchases as well. And that's reviewed annually too. So as you progress, as you build your experience, as you work through any professional exams that you do as part of the programme, that's reviewed each year. And it's somewhat performance driven too. So if you're performing really well, that will be reflected in any pay increase that you might get each year.
That's really good to have an incentive of progression.
Absolutely. Yes.
And in the first session, when we were speaking to the apprentices, they said that they're guaranteed a role and a promotion as soon as they graduate, which is really good.
That's right. And if you compare, say, a Bright Start programme, typically that programme will last roughly 3 to 4 years. And for some of our business areas like audit, for example, you'll do your professional accountancy qualification. You'll get to the end point of that qualification in 4 years total from joining the firm to qualifying. If you compare that to a university route, it would be at least a 3 to 4 year degree course, plus then 3 or 4 years of study when you come into the firm. So if you look at actually your trajectory, you're getting to the same place as a graduate would, but at least 2 to 3 years quicker in many cases.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. Can you tell us a little bit about the candidate prep zone?
Of course, yeah. So the candidate prep zone is a really extensive suite of materials to help our applicants. So we recognise for many, particularly apprentices, this might be the first time that you've had to engage in this type of recruitment process, and it can be really daunting. And access to people and information to support with that can be difficult to attain sometimes. So our candidate prep zone is really a suite of extensive content to help you through every single stage of the process. So for example, if you are logging on to take your online assessment, there's a whole module on that candidate prep zone, which allows you to build an understanding of what's coming, to see some practical questions and to build your confidence before you go into completing that assessment. And as I said, every stage you work through, there's content on that prep zone, and we hope it then levels the playing field. It gives everybody the information they need to be able to feel prepared and confident going into the recruitment process.
When you first fill out an application form, how can you stand out at that stage?
So the application form, when you apply, is relatively high level information, so it doesn't take too long to complete. And primarily at that stage, we're looking to collect things such as contact information, details about your education history to date, and any other useful detail that will support your application. So for example, if you have any reasonable adjustments that we need to consider, so say if you get extra time in your exams at school or college, that can apply as well for when you're doing online assessments. So there's the opportunity to share that with us up front. It's really as we work through the recruitment process that we get to know you more. So the online assessments that you do, they're things like maths and logical based assessments, some situational judgment aspects, so asking you what you might do in different situations and how you might respond, and also some behavioural components as well, so we can learn more about your preferred ways of behaving and acting in different situations. It's really if you progress to do a video interview, say for our Bright Start programme, and come through to the assessment centre, that's when we get to really find out more about you, and there's tailored opportunities there for you to be able to showcase the breadth of your experiences.
Let's hear about your journey, Justin.
Sure.
So how did you get started with Deloitte?
I'm relatively new to Deloitte actually, so I've been really fortunate enough to work in the early careers recruitment space for about 10 years now. I joined the firm myself about 6 months ago. I previously worked at a competitor firm actually before moving to Deloitte. But I've really loved the journey so far. I have a great team of people that I get to work with each and every day. Deloitte has a really strong commitment for its early careers programs and recruitment. So it's really a delight to be in an organisation that places such strong emphasis on recruiting bright talent that essentially will become our future leaders down the track. And that support that I get in terms of my development too. I've got a great line manager. I've got a great coach that supports my development. And whenever there's been a time when I've potentially valued some more formal training to upskill in a certain area, there are always options there for me to pursue. And I've really enjoyed the flexibility that Deloitte offers too. So I spend some of my week in the office, but also I get to spend some of my week at home as well. And I really value that balance.
I like the fact that you said there's options if you want to do something rather than a yes or a no.
Absolutely, yes.
In
And I think
of your
it's
progression, that's good.
Absolutely. And as I said, there's so much support in place for you to work with the right people to help you get to where you want to get to.
So we've discussed kind of every stage that someone would go through. We've discussed the journey that you went through as well. What happens when someone's given an offer?
Sure. So that offer might come several months in advance of you starting on a programme with us. There's some formalities that we do, so we call that the onboarding phase. So there's some paperwork and some formalities that we do work through. But at the point of accepting our offer, we do allocate each of our new joiners a buddy, and that is typically an apprentice that joined the firm in the last 1 to 2 years, who's been in the footsteps of that person that's going to be coming into the firm. And they really act as that informal point of contact between receiving the offer and starting at Deloitte to ask any questions that you might have. It might be linked to the role. It might be practical questions about what's the dress code? What do I need to wear on my first day? What advice can you give to me to help me feel in the best place possible when walking in on day one? And as a recruitment team, we keep in really close contact with all of our offered applicants up to the point of starting. And we generally share useful information each month. And there is a candidate joining zone which offer holders get access to, which holds lots of useful information and answers to the most frequently asked questions too. So it's not a case you get the offer and nothing happens.
You're thrown in the deep end.
There's some real structure behind that journey of receiving the offer to starting, and points of contact there to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm loving how much support there is. You've discussed the candidate prep zone, the mentor that you're given, and the candidate joining zone. That's a lot of different support for a new starter. That's fantastic.
Yes, yeah, but we recognise it's a massive step coming into the workplace for the first time. So it's really important to have those mechanisms in place to help feel confident and comfortable coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if someone went through the application process at any stage and they were unsuccessful, because it does happen, can they apply again in the future?
Certainly, yes. You can make our work experience programs excluded. Say for one of our entry level or Bright Start apprenticeship programs, you can make one application each year to those programs. So if you were unfortunately unsuccessful with an initial application, then yes, going into the next recruitment year, which typically starts each September, you'd be able to make another application to us.
And would you suggest that anyone who is unsuccessful asks for feedback or does anything else in the meantime?
No, absolutely. And we give feedback to candidates regardless of outcome, actually, after each of the key stages of recruitment. So say if you were unsuccessful after doing the online assessment components, you'll get some positive and constructive feedback on the areas that you've done really well, but also some feedback on areas to maybe give more focus to moving forwards. Same applies after the interview. So as long as you complete that stage, regardless of outcome, you'll receive feedback, which we hope is helpful to maybe support an application again in the next year, or more broadly helpful for your broader job search.
Well, Justin, before we finish this session, have you got any advice to anyone watching or listening who is about to take this step?
No, of course, and I would encourage people to consider all of the options that are available to them. There's absolutely merit with pursuing the university pathway, but increasingly so there's absolutely merit with considering alternative routes to university. And increasingly so there are many more programs out there for individuals to consider. So I would say take every opportunity to build your understanding of what's out there. Things like our Career Shaper work experience program, for example, is a really good way of dipping your toe in the water, getting a bit of insight to what it might be like to work at a firm like Deloitte, and then ruling things in and out through that process, and just taking all those opportunities that are presented to build your understanding of what the right pathway might be for you as an individual.
And if someone wants to find out more information, where can they go? Absolutely.
So I'd say our careers website is a first starting basis. On there as well are links to all of our social pages too. So that would be the primary place that I would suggest people go to as a starting basis.
Fantastic. Well, Justin, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights.
Thank you.
And thank you to you at home for joining us for this very special evening discussing all things Deloitte and the career opportunities there. If you did miss any of this or you want to watch it again, it will be available on demand. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family, their community, our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything, if not to make an impact that actually matters? No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems. To know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black to green. Creating impact where it matters most.